Okay, we'll be reading from Shane's Daily Bible Reading today, and it's day 206 in that schedule. And today's date is April 11th, 2024. We'll begin with Judges chapter 8, which begins with the words, "And the men of Ephraim."
And the men of Ephraim said unto him, Why hast thou served us thus, that thou calledst us not, when thou wentest to fight with the Midianites? And they did chide with him sharply.
And he said unto them, What have I done now in comparison of you? Is not the gleaning of the grapes of Ephraim better than the vintage of Abiezar?
God hath delivered into your hands the princes of Midian, Oreb, and Zeb. And what was I able to do in comparison of you? Then their anger was abated toward him when he had said that.
And Gideon came to Jordan and passed over, he and the 300 men that were with him, faint yet pursuing them.
And he said unto the men of Succoth, Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian.
And the princes of Succoth said, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thine army?
So they're not going to help.
Nope, they're not going to pay him until after he produces.
And Gideon said, Therefore, when the Lord hath delivered Zebah and Zalmunna into my hand, then I will tear your flesh with the thorns of the wilderness and with briars. Oh, someone's going to get a butt whipping.
Yeah. And he went up thence to Penuel, and spake unto them likewise. And the men of Penuel answered him as the men of Succoth had answered him.
And he spake also unto the men of Penuel, saying, When I come again in peace, I will break down this tower.
Now Zebah and Zalmunna were in Kakor, and their host with them, about 15,000 men. All that were left of all the host of the children of the east, for there fell 120,000 men that drew sword.
And Gideon went up by the way of them that dwelt in tents on the east of Nobah and Jogbehah, and smote the host, for the host was secure.
And when Zebah and Zalmunna fled, he pursued after them, and took the 2 kings of Midian, Zebah and Zalmunna, and discomfited all the host.
And Gideon the son of Joash returned from battle before the sun was up,
and called a young man of the men of Succoth, and inquired of him. And he described unto him the princes of Succoth, and elders thereof, even 70 men.
And he came unto the men of Succoth, and said, Behold, Zebah and Zalmunna, with whom ye did upbraid me, saying, Are the hands of Zebah and Zalmunna now in thine hand, that we should give bread unto thy men that are weary?
And he took the elders of the city, and thorns of the wilderness and briars, and with them he taught the men of Succoth.
He taught them a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And he beat down the tower of Penuel, and slew the men of the city.
Then said he unto Zebah and Zalmunna, What manner of men were they whom ye slew at Tabor? And they answered, As thou art, so were they. Each one resembled the children of a king.
And he said, They were my brethren, even the sons of my mother. As the Lord liveth, if ye had saved them alive, I would not slay you.
And he said unto Jether, his firstborn, Up and slay them. But the youth drew not his sword, for he feared, because he was yet a youth.
And that is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we, even in our own selves, we're still that child, aren't we? We're just a youth.
Mm-hmm. Or we even have great expectations for others who are just youths, and they are not yet
Ready.
Mm-mm. To do. But look at the challenge, or look what the deed was.
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah, I was
it's
gonna say
something
we
that
have to-
is for a man to do,
Yeah.
and not a youth.
Well, I think sometimes we want to promote, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just not, like you said, the challenge is not for the youth.
Sure.
Then Zebah and Zalmunna said, Rise thou and fall upon us, for as the man is, so is his strength. And Gideon arose and slew Zebah and Zalmunna and took away the ornaments that were on their camels' necks.
Then the men of Israel said unto Gideon, Rule thou over us, both thou and thy son's son also, for thou hast delivered us from the hand of Midian.
And Gideon said unto them, I will not rule over you, neither shall my son rule over you. The Lord shall rule over you.
And Gideon said unto them, I would desire a request of you, that ye would give me every man the earrings of his prey, for they had golden earrings, because they were Ishmaelites.
Well, that's interesting. The Ishmaelite men wore earrings.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's fascinating. Thinking around today's society, and I see it seems to be a recent phenomenon where there are many men wearing earrings.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And here we have them, and they'll probably be proud to be called an Ishmaelite, by all means, or that which is ungodly, or not uncircumcised, right? Untouched by God.
Yeah.
At any rate, I mean, they broadcast it. It's just pretty plain and simple. It's not any shame, right?
It's
To
fascinating.
to not point out to it, but to be wise as serpents and harmless as doves, and to see that the way one dresses or the way one presents and says a lot.
Right. And it's been since this time even.
Yeah, right. There's historical reference here.
And they answered, We will willingly give them. And they spread a garment and did cast therein every man the earrings of his prey.
And the weight of the golden earrings that he requested was 1,700 shekels of gold, beside ornaments and collars and purple raiment that was on the kings of Midian, and beside the chains that were about their camels' necks.
Wow.
I think of the cars, that are all souped up with all the chrome and all the flashiness, and just some of the things which we can observe of the camels around us. I mean, come on, they had chains of gold. I mean, we assume it's gold, right? That were about their camels' necks. I mean, what bling.
Bling, yeah.
Yeah.
And Gideon made an ephod thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah. And all Israel went thither, a whoring after it, which thing became a snare unto Gideon and to his house.
Whoa. Made an ephod.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot. Or let's look that up. Girdle, specifically. And so I guess he got him some duds.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because it's kind of like, you remember what, hey, let's build this or create this and remember what God did for us.
Mm-hmm.
But that very thing that he made or built now has become an idol. Don't touch that.
Yeah, Ophrah, we have this word again, which is female fawn. And all Israel went thither a whoring after it. I think of the verse in the Bible, I think it's from James, where it says, ye adulterers and adulteresses, don't you know that friendship of this world is enmity against God?
Right.
Just think that how we, our spirits be coupled to those things in this world, would be disloyalty unto the one that which we, are connected to, and that is our, has all of our riches for us. But and how many people, well, we have to go get some new duds, and we're going to follow after these, after Gideon, Gideon being the example of that which we must emulate.
Yeah.
Right. So, in verse 28, it reads, "Thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. And the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon."
And Jerubbaal, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. That's interesting.
The name change?
Yeah.
Yes, suddenly. And all of a sudden now he's Jerubbaal. It's like, okay, there's Gideon before the people, but privately he's Jerubbaal.
And then the next verse, now he's back to Gideon.
Right. And Gideon had 70 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives.
Now, how many is that? 70 is?
Would be 3 times 20 plus 10, which would be 70.
Wow.
Right.
He had many wives. And
Yes.
his concubine that was in...
But let me say, this reminds me of that passage like I gave from James, where, I believe that there's so many things that we, it might be said that we were like Samson, who had many concubines. We have so many in our heart,
right,
that we, have not bow to, but to be joined to,
and you have little children.
Yeah, we have a little offspring by
Right,
them, little projects here, little projects there, with all of our little hopes and aspirations there, right?
Right.
And we hope that they take root and go out into the world and multiply.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's more mouths to feed.
And he apparently it was never enough for him, because he had that many little projects and concubines. It's like, doesn't that make you tired? Apparently not.
Oh, you think he had many? I mean, you see how many I have, right? I mean, there are just so many. It's like, where do I start, each day, kind of, on all these various projects.
And verse 31, it said, 31, and his concubine that was in Shechem, she also bare him a son, whose name he called Abimelech.
Which means father of the king. And Gideon the son of Joash died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father, in Ophrah of the Abiezrites. Abiezrites, which is the father of Ezrite, and Ezrite is father of help. So he's the father of help, I guess, or him that is helpful.
Yeah. Verse 33, and it came to pass as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again and went a-whoring after Balaam, and made Baal-berith their god.
Right, where Baal-berith is Baal of the covenant, and Baal means master. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side.
Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel.
All right, they forgot about him after all of that.
Yeah.
After all the gold and the earrings and from the Ishmaelites, and putting down their enemies, the
Well, how quickly
Midianites.
that happens to us, though.
Yeah, I know.
Even in a given day, I've noticed, it's like, wow, I'm not going to forget the goodness of the Lord on the, and then towards the end of the day, I forgot about it.
Yeah, we forgot the champion. Right?
Yeah.
Be it Gideon or if he be the Christological figure here, the
Mm-hmm.
hero, right? How
Right.
much we forget what he has done for us
Yeah.
and the success that we have gained. I say gained by him. The
Mm-hmm.
many victories, yeah. And the Midianites, I think, is brawling and contentious, and all
Right.
those things that troubled us, right? That he, with a cord of whips, right?
Mhm.
Like he went
The
into
briars.
the briars from the wilderness, right? Like Jesus who went into the temple, right?
Mm.
Right? My house shall be called a house of prayer, and you have made it a den of thieves, right? And so many of those exchanges are going on within our own very temples, these bodies that would, anger the Lord.
Yeah.
And he wins those battles for us. And then we soon forget. So, okay, that was the end of Judges chapter 8. Now, we go to Acts chapter 12. It is written, Now about that time,
Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church.
so here we have Herod. From Mark, we read about Herod who killed John the Baptist, had him beheaded. So here we have Herod part 2,
Yeah.
or later on. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword.
So James is the brother of John the Baptist or John Zebedee, sons of thunder? Sons of thunder, maybe. Huh?
Probably, yes.
And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so does this mean that he
The
killed...
first Easter? Wait.
Well,
Go
no,
ahead.
it was the first Passover that
The
they
first-
celebrated together. But, the first resurrection, day of resurrection.
A year after
Right.
the crucifixion and resurrection. I'm just curious.
Does this mean that when it says he proceeded further to take Peter, is that implying that Peter was killed then too? So he didn't live that much longer?
Well, he tried to take him.
Oh.
He further.
Okay. So
I think so.
I guess we need to go ahead and finish. Yeah, sorry.
Well,
about
actually,
that.
yeah, verse
It
4.
does say he apprehended them, so okay.
Sure. Yeah, I think this is where Peter makes his great escape,
Yeah.
where the angel comes and gets him out. So in verse 4 it says, And when he had apprehended him, he put him in prison and delivered him to 4 quaternions, I think it says, quaternions of soldiers to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. So there's that word Easter, right?
Tetradion. That's the
Tetradions?
tetradion.
Huh. And translated quaternions.
Squad.
That's a word there. And 4 squads, huh?
Alright.
Tetris.
Hmm.
Yeah, how large is a squad? 10?
Says a
perhaps?
squad picket of 4 Roman soldiers.
Oh, okay. So 4 times 4. Or it could just be 4. I don't know. Could be a translation issue here.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see it as being very relevant, at least not right now.
Yeah. Anyway, so finish. Sorry.
But there were many.
Mm-hmm.
More than 1. 4, at least. If not 16.
Was it my turn? Verse 5?
Yes.
Verse 5, Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him.
And when Herod would have brought him forth the same night, Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers bound with 2 chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison.
And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison, and he smote Peter on the side.
Yeah.
And raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly. And his chains fell off from his hands.
Yes.
And he, what is it? To knock. Oh.
So he smote him to wake him up, I assume, to come to his senses. And then fascinating, he says, arise up quickly. you know, so quick. There was, you know, make haste.
Right.
And the angel said unto him, Gird thyself and bind on thy sandals. And so he did. And he saith unto him, Cast thy garment about thee and follow me.
And he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true which was done by the angel, but thought he saw a vision. I have to say that sometimes, people are like, is this real? And then I pinched myself, and it was real because,
Right.
because sometimes it just seems so unbelievable what's happening in our lives. It's like, is this really happening?
Yeah.
Pinch, it's happening.
Mm-hmm. Something like this has never happened before I've ever heard of. I remember when I was released from prison
Right.
years ago in 2000, how, it was incredible and a miraculous event insofar that it was absolutely unexpected.
Right. Well, and it shouldn't have happened.
There was no prophecy of it. I say prophecy, no expectation of it ever occurring
Right.
or being possible. Even possible because it defied the law of the state that I was in, whereby the state had said that I would be incarcerated to X date at the minimum. And here I was 11 months before that, and I was on my bunk, and there came the clerk saying, Pack my stuff. Pack your stuff, you're going home.
And you thought it was kind of funny, didn't you? You was like, I don't know, you just went and picked up stuff at the commissary and
yeah, it was absolutely. It was the wrong time of day for prisoners to be released for one, and I had no. I mean, the standard practice for prisoners to be released is to be told the day before,
right,
so that they can have a ride or they can make arrangements the following day when they were going to be released, right? And I mean, I've been in this prison before, and that's how they did it. They always did it. There were 2,500 inmates there, and here I was, just the one, the one that was picked, chosen, and told to rise up, come, let's go. You're getting out. And I was, and at that time in a Quonset hut with I think 75 other inmates, and with 38 bunks, I guess you'd say. And I never forget. I mean, they were all there. It got very silent, and because it just was unreal. It's like I said, it's the wrong time of the day for these events to ever occur. And as long as we had ever been there, and I packed my stuff up, put it in the cart, and I was being escorted. I say escorted, out of that Quonset hut, and I went over. Was escorted. I all this time I thought that this is not possible. This is a mistake, and in fact, I told people that this is a mistake. It's like I'm really being transported to another prison. I thought, that this is impossible. What they're telling me, I'm going to be released to go home because I had the document, I had the paperwork saying my earliest release date, my what we call it MRD, mandatory release date, which is the mandatory, the minimum, right? Was December 23rd, right, of 2000 of that year 2000, and here it was January 13th of 2000, so 11 months ahead of time. And plus, this was also to give a little bit more information. This was right after that Y2K thing,
and
year
something,
2000, right, when the world did not end,
right,
as many expected.
Something that to add a little twist to that is that year, 1999 in December. I remember praying
for me, yeah.
But I didn't know it was for you.
No, we had not yet known each other.
Oh
or
no,
met each
but
other
I just felt a real heaviness to pray for my future husband. And to be honest, I even thought it was kind of funny because I thought I wasn't going to be getting married.
Yeah.
But when you shared this story with me before, I thought, well, isn't that fascinating how the Lord works?
Yeah.
To pray.
And I got saved August 4th of 99, right? You know, and then that changed my whole life or
Yeah.
my whole destiny.
7 years later, though,
Right.
is when we would end up meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was 7 years later. Yeah.
So fascinating, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then they transported me over to the counselor's office, and I sat there. Or no, I remember it was like I thought that this is unreal. It's like we missed going into the property room, which would have been uh, the logical place I would have went if I was going to another prison, right? Because they transport prisoners from prison to prison sometimes for various reasons, programs and changes of security status. I was in a medium security prison at that time, and I was on the list. I knew to go to a minimum security prison, but they had told me it would be about 3 or 4 months. So that's why I thought that that's what was happening here.
Right.
I was like, oh, the 3 or 4 months became 3 or 4 days, and that's. But it still was very peculiar, or because it was, like I said, the wrong time of the day, and they don't do these kind of movements at this time of the day. They do them early in the morning, very early in the morning, and we are made aware of them the day in advance to prepare ourselves, and not only prepare ourselves, but for the whole institution to prepare itself for this for that event. And so, anyways, the my escort uh, transported me or escorted me over to the counselor's office, and at about 12 o'clock during the day, and I went in there, and I'll never forget there was no one else there at all, and then I got to thinking that this is really seems like it's going to be real.
Yeah.
Like they're going to do this. It's like this is incredible. It's like they are making a mistake. And I thought, wow. Or at least it's like they're going to catch on soon. Eventually, I was like, I mean, yeah, because I knew it was a mistake. And I was like, well, what am I going to do here if I go back there to see my counselor and they're going to, or what's going to happen? Why do I need to see my counselor anyways?
Right.
So, it was less than a minute. I guess they called me to go back to see my counselor, and I went to see her, and I never forget. It was right there on her desk was my release papers, right there. And she said, Mr. Vire, you are about to be released, and I need an address to know where you are going, right? Because I was still going to be on parole, right? After that, for one, it's not, and so at any rate, I looked at her, and I can't remember her name right now, but at any rate, I remember her face, and I looked her in the eye, and I told her, I think that there's a mistake being made. And she said, why is that? And I said, well, my release date is not until December 23rd at the earliest. And that, and
Right.
she said, well, there was a change in law because of an appeal that affects the calculation of my time. Now, I did not have an appeal, and I was there for a parole violation. There is no appeal for that, as far as as far as that's concerned. I didn't even apply for an appeal, so I was somehow, some way, by the vicarious action of another, I was going to be a beneficiary of this. I have no idea. I mean, there was a change in Maryland law, and there's that state, Maryland, that that somehow affected my sentence, and my sentence was already like 10 years old. This was a continuation of a sentence long before that. I was, like I said, on a parole violation, and then they brought me in. So I thought that and she said, like, well, where are you going? And I off the top of my head, or not off the top of my head, I was sort of a little bit prepared. I gave her an address for a rescue mission, even though I might have gone home, and I used the word home to go live with my parents, where I had been before. I just felt that God was telling me, go boldly, you know, put all my eggs on him and go the way that he was going to direct me into a place that I did not know, and I was going to receive, you know, a lot of blessings by doing that, by trusting in him to do so. You know, it seemed like the odds were so much against me to go out and to do that, but yet I was just putting it all on the outside chance, or not the outside chance, but the believing in God and His Word to do for me to do that. So yeah, and then next thing you know, I mean, here I go and I signed the paperwork. I gave her the address, or you know, we had to look it up actually because I didn't know the address of that rescue mission where I wanted to go, and then they led me out of the counselor's office, took me over there to the property room. And I never forget, it was just so unreal because I remember seeing people, I mean, some of the other inmates, and it was like the whole world was looking at me. I mean, it really was. It was like it was surreal. You know, it's like the whole world is like was just so, everybody's eyes were focused on me, who was the recipient of a blessing that I had not earned. And it all came together, whereas all of creation even saw in me, not me, but anyways, someone else, and um, who was worthy to be praised. And so yeah, they packed my stuff up, and I got on the van, and there was a guard that was driving that van. It was like a 15-passenger van, but I was the only one on that van.
Yeah.
And there were, like I said, about 2,500 other inmates at that prison. So I don't know what happened to law to affect my sentence and not anyone else's. And I later did some research and found out that I can't remember exactly right now, but it had something to do with uh, previous sentences when they were ran concurrent to each other, that the good time earned off of one can be applied to another, and that somehow I think a violation of parole could not break that. There's more to it, a lot more to it, but still, why was I the only one? You know, in that whole place, like, well, what about everyone else? I mean, you know, there were many of other inmates that were there for the exact same reasons I were. So, yeah, so I got on that van and we went riding up out of there, and then halfway to the bus stop, I saw the biggest, brightest rainbow I ever seen in my whole life that stretched from one side of the road and to another, and I just knew that like that was over. It was over. That was the other side of the flood. You know, all of that life was going to be left behind.
Yeah.
And here I was, like riding in the ark. You know.
Yeah.
The ark of God's promises. It's like He's got tomorrow taken care of. Don't worry about it. And the whole past is washed away behind me. You know, it was incredible.
Yeah.
I was delivered right there at the bus stop, you know, and that began a new. But that day did not start off like that. Neither did I have any of that expectation that that was going to occur that day. I had no at all. I mean, I had no dream that it would happen. Similar probably to Peter here. It's like, wake up! You got to get going.
Right.
It's like, this cannot be real. I thought it was a vision. So that was in verse 10. Or actually, I need to read verse 10. Okay. Because verse 9 is where it says, but thought he saw a vision. In verse 10, when they were past the first and second ward, they came to the iron gate. That's very similar to exactly what I just explained. Happened to me. But that leadeth unto the city, which opened to them of his own accord. And they went out and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. And now we have verse 11.
And when Peter was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel, and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews.
And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying.
And as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken, named Rhoda.
And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate.
And I always thought that that was so funny. You know, here he is. He needs to get in. She's so happy that she doesn't even open up the door, the gate. And they said unto her, Thou art mad. But she constantly affirmed it. It was even so. Then said they, It is his angel.
But Peter continued knocking, and when they had opened the door and saw him, they were astonished.
But he, beckoning unto them with the hand to hold their peace, declared unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go shew these things unto James and to the brethren. And he departed and went into another place.
Now as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Peter.
And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death. And he went down from Judea to Caesarea, and there abode.
And Herod was highly displeased of them and of Tyre. Was that Tyre or Tyre or Tyrus? At any rate, Tyre and Sidon. But they came with one accord to him, and having made Blastus, the king's chamberlain, their friend, desired peace, because their country was nourished by the king's country.
And upon a set day Herod, arrayed in royal apparel, sat upon his throne, and made an oration unto them.
And the people gave a shout, saying, It is the voice of a God, and not of a man.
And immediately the angel of the Lord smote him, because he gave not God the glory. And he was eaten of worms, and gave up the ghost.
Lesson learned. Right. But the word of God grew and multiplied.
And Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem, when they had fulfilled their ministry, and took with them John, whose surname was Mark.
Yeah. And the march goes on. That was the end of Acts chapter 12, and now we go to Jeremiah chapter 21. It is written, The word which came unto Jeremiah.
The word which came unto Jeremiah from the Lord, when King Zedekiah sent unto him Pashur, the son of Malachi, and Zephaniah, the son of Maaseiah, the priest, saying,
Inquire, I pray thee, of the Lord for us, for Nebuchadnezzar king of Babylon maketh war against us. If so be that the Lord would deal with us according to all his wondrous works, that he may go up from us.
Then said Jeremiah unto them, Thus shall ye say to Zedekiah,
Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Behold, I will turn back the weapons of war that are in your hands, wherewith ye fight against the king of Babylon, and against the Chaldeans which besiege you without the walls, and I will assemble them into the midst of this city.
And I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and with a strong arm, even in anger and in fury and in great wrath.
And I will smite the inhabitants of this city, both man and beast. They shall die of a great pestilence.
And afterward, saith the Lord, I will deliver Zedekiah king of Judah and his servants, and the people, and such as are left in this city from the pestilence, from the sword, and from the famine, into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and into the hand of their enemies, and into the hand of those that seek their life. And he shall smite them with the edge of the sword. He shall not spare them, neither have pity, nor have mercy.
And unto this people thou shalt say, Thus saith the Lord, Behold, I set before you the way of life and the way of death.
He that abideth in this city shall die by the sword, and by the famine, and by the pestilence. But he that goeth out and falleth to the Chaldeans that besiege you, he shall live, and his life shall be unto him for a prey.
Excellent, yeah. Chaldeans, okay. When I looked that up, it has a lot of information. Well, basically it says it's occasionally it's towards the Kastites. It's a patronymic from another word, which means from an unused root of uncertain meaning. Means there's no translation here. Basically, it's a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And then in verse 10 we read, For I have set my face against this city for evil and not for good, saith the Lord. It shall be given into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he shall burn it with fire.
And touching the house of the king of Judah, say, Hear ye the word of the Lord.
O house of David, thus saith the Lord, Execute judgment in the morning, and deliver him that is spoiled out of the hand of the oppressor, lest my fury go out like fire, and burn that none can quench it, because of the evil of your doings.
Behold, I am against thee, O inhabitant of the valley, and rock of the plain, saith the Lord, which say, Who shall come down against us? Or who shall enter into our habitations?
But I will punish you according to the fruit of your doings, saith the Lord, and I will kindle a fire in the forest thereof, and it shall devour all things round about it. Yep, the Lord is a consuming fire, and he visits the habitations of his people, and he destroys.
That's right.
He could destroy your joy and your pleasure in things, and that's ultimately or essentially doing the same thing as if he used the word literally, and I hesitate to use that word because literal I think is that which is sometimes not or misrepresentative, but if he concretely destroyed the things that you physically possess, he can literally destroy them existentially, as far as, in truth from us, take the joy that we have of them and totally destroy it, wipe it out. Okay, that's Jeremiah chapter 21, and now we're going to Mark chapter 7. Okay. And it begins, They came together unto him.
Then came together unto him the Pharisees, and certain of the scribes, which came from Jerusalem.
And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with the defiled, that is to say, with unwashed hands, they found fault.
For the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands oft, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders.
It reminds me, don't touch this, don't touch that, unless you do things properly first, and then, as if something we do makes them clean.
Right. It works.
Yeah, when we make ourselves clean, just by extension, it makes other things clean.
However, it's not bad to wash your hands often, or not eat if you see, you know what I mean.
Right, let's wash it with the water, with the Word of God.
Right.
Right? Let's cleanse our own selves, and the hands to apprehend things in this life, in this world.
Yeah.
Right. But it doesn't make them clean,
Mm-mm.
the things we touch, by any means. And when they were come from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be which they have received to hold, as the washing of cups and pots, brazen vessels, and of tables.
Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, Why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashen hands?
He answered and said unto them, Well hath Isaiah prophesied of you, hypocrites, as it is written, This people honoreth me with their lips, but their heart is far from me.
Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men.
For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold the tradition of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do.
And he said unto them, Full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition.
For Moses said, Honor thy father and thy mother, and whoso curseth father or mother, let him die the death.
But ye say, If a man shall say to his father or mother, It is Corban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free.
And it reminds me of, of being self-exalted so that we even boast of what we are and try to, use the past, our father, or what has, brought us forth, and make that the contrast where we say, now look at me, now, compared to my past, and we curse our parents.
Mm-hmm.
What has, and all the law that has brought us forth by grace through faith which we stand, and we forsake it for the traditions of the elders, where we boast of ourselves,
Yeah.
and we lift ourselves up, or we put on that ephod, and those nice looking duds, and feel good, it's a temptation that happens occasionally, and many a times I think, we stumble on that, whereas we actually miss the mark, or we're so far from God when we do that. So in verse 12, it says, And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother,
making the word of God of none effect through your tradition, which ye have delivered, and many such like things do ye.
And when he had called all the people unto him, he said unto them, Hearken unto me every one of you, and understand.
There is nothing from without a man, that entering into him can defile him. That's what Jesus said.
Yeah.
But the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man.
The true man.
Whenever I would have these conversations, which is very rare anymore, but in the beginning, there's nothing from without a man that entereth into him that can defile him. When I was talking to friends that were kosher, I mean, not because I kept kosher too, but somehow people take even the most simple statement, which is, that's what he said.
Right.
And will take that and say that, but that's not what he meant.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but that's what he said.
And you're both right, though.
Right.
But you can both be wrong, In fact, by being right, we can understand that this has the further application or understanding whereby we realize that, I want to be careful here. Some people could go and say some things that I don't believe are true. It's like, well, we could just watch, well, porn, right?
Right.
Or watch anything, violence on TV, and these do not hurt the man, right? These do not defile the man, right? And you know, I think that actually that this would be. I don't think this means that.
No, I don't think so. I think, like in verse 13, it says, making the word of God of none effect through your traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Does it say not to eat such and such in the Old Testament? Yes, it does. However, what he's saying is that there's nothing that's from without anything.
Mm-hmm.
This is not going to defile me. A piece of bacon
right.
is not going to defile you.
Right.
What defiles us is what's in here.
Right.
I'm sorry, but this was one of my arguments, and I can remember having this with, and this is food for thought. When we ran from the Nazis, and you did not have anything to eat, and a farmer took you in, a goy, a Gentile,
right,
and they gave us
what was placed
lima beans and pork. Ain't nobody gonna be turning that lima beans and pork down.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was some that
sure,
were,
there's the physical
struggle,
dietary
right?
Laws, right, which does not actually defile a person.
Exactly.
However, your understanding of it can.
Yes,
right,
and
it would defile you, but it would be a false. It would be untrue, but there's also the idea that there could be, because you do it because of the traditions of the elders, which would be wrong.
Well, and it's the same thing that we've discussed about Easter, about Christmas.
Right.
Does that defile someone?
Right. No, but it can. Yes.
Yeah, because
and not only it can, it also can defile us by not participating with it, for we would be unclean just to even have the thought of it. It was corrupting us just to even, like I use the phrase, to chew upon it in our conversation, and it made us I use sullied, dirty, in our condemnation of what other people did,
or
as they did it peacefully, right?
Of oneself, as in my case, to think, well, if I do that,
and they are bad that do it, right?
Well, no, I would think
it comes back on
me.
That right.
For me to do that, it would be, it felt sinful, right?
Yeah.
So we take something that.
And it could be proper not to do it. If you think it's a sin, don't do it. But when we go so far as to chew upon the idea that others that do it and then proceedeth out of our heart's condemnation, right? Which because of the filth that we see on others, it's like we are now with our very hands, right, being defiled by the things that we hold conceptually with our thoughts, or in our thoughts with our hands, our brain hands, whatever we're holding in our brain, our thoughts, right? And we can actually fall into that error many a time. It's like, that's what defiles me. The things I'm chewing on in my brain.
In here.
Right. And the pigs and I use the pigs, the swine and all those unclean beasts, they have you just don't think about certain things, because they make you unclean. You think about, and we could talk about this further, and others have already done it. Why is it that we don't eat the pig, right? Or why don't we eat swine? Or why don't, in our own thoughts, and because swine are unclean? They hang around in mud, and pig, they eat each other's feces and anything else. It's like, of course not. Of course they're going to be unclean.
Right. Or why not watch porn?
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. Pigs laying around with each other,
Well, no.
Well, you got to think about it. There's like the corresponding relationship there where they are actually,
but to say
wild animals,
but this is fascinating, because then you could jump from that and say, yeah, well, that's wrong. Okay, well, right there, now I've just defiled myself, because now it's like, oh, no, because you're making a proper judgment. That is wrong.
Right.
Of course you don't. right. But what I'm saying is that by me
You just be
passing that,
wise and
yeah, just be
circumspect.
like, I mean,
I'm
choose.
smart enough to see that people that do watch those things, by all means are made unclean,
Right.
but they are in of themselves. But I'm not going to go further and sit down and condemn them and eat
Right.
with them. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
Because
I
it's
would
sort of
eat
like
with
even
you, but I'm not
condemning
going to
them.
partake
It's
in
like
what
it's
they're-
like it's like yeah. No, I'll turn away the pork that they eat, the swine that they eat, and then I become like what's another animal they couldn't eat?
Mhm.
For,
Lobster, for instance.
yeah, self-righteous goat. I don't know. No, goat. You could eat the goat, right?
Yeah, but you can't
yeah,
eat
but
lobster.
Yeah.
Crab,
You become anyways, we could go.
Well,
and
Jesus
get
ate with the sinners.
correlation,
And
right?
he sat with them.
And he was without sin.
Right. And so that's all I'm trying to say. What I get from this is to be like Jesus.
Right.
I'm not
Have
going
peace
to
with all people as
and
much
not
as
make
lie without
everything
them. Right.
hard.
Yeah.
He said, "Take my yoke upon you, for it is light and easy to bear."
Mm-hmm.
Why do we insist on making this very, very difficult?
Right, and a lot of times when we condemn others, or at least when our thoughts would, we actually grip them and touch them, in our thoughts, and we were like, and we would, and we will point to them, or we bring them before somebody else. Hey, let's talk about this person. You know what I mean? About their uncleanliness, right?
Which makes
Right.
you unclean.
Right. It's like, it makes it defiles us,
Right.
and it makes us unclean. So
Right.
those things, just be wise about those things.
Exactly.
And we do it many a times.
I do it all
we've
the
all
time.
done it. We
All
do
the
it, and
time.
we do it
We
all the
all
time.
do it.
Oh yeah,
It's, For us to
But there's
say,
some
no, I
things-
don't,
there-
then you're committing the very thing again.
Well, I have learned, and is that you avoid situations. Hopefully,
Hopefully,
you try to avoid those situations where it's done. Where let's all right, let's have roast preacher today.
Right.
Let's roast him up. Many. It's like, did you see what he did? Or hear what he said? But the motive or whatever in us is to bring out the uncleanly, the parts that are unclean, and say that is not kosher, right?
Right.
But yet us are talking about it, we are chewing up on it,
And becoming unclean.
right. Whether we spit it out or not, it's like nah, it's just
You still pass that judgment,
sure, and we
which
can,
is God's job, not mine. Okay,
Right.
but the whole thing that that says there's nothing in verse 15. There's nothing from without a man that can enter that defiles us.
right.
It's all what's in here that's
Don't be so serious
out
on
of
all
us.
that, right? Don't judge, right? Just let it just digest it, right? Let your body digest it, and don't spit it out.
what's coming out of us is what defiles us, though.
Right.
So yes, granted, what goes in can be harmful. I mean,
But
I'll
it
just
gets
take for
purged, though.
instance,
I think we're
bacon.
going to read, right? It gets purged.
Bacon can give you high cholesterol. It can harden your arteries. True.
Yeah.
Right. But it's what comes out of us that defiles.
Yeah.
If we take something in.
Well, we're gluttonous, you
Right,
know?
right.
And
And
we
then-
can all be very gluttonous in our normal conversation and way,
Right.
and be very malnourished physically,
Mm-hmm.
But spiritually, the man that's speaking up here could be, altogether a glutton,
Right. So you're
it's-
verse 16, which is it's kind of
Right. Okay. If any man have ears to hear, let him hear.
and so hopefully everybody had ears to hear for that little discussion.
Yeah.
And when he was entered into the house from the people, his disciples asked him concerning the parable.
Yeah. And he saith unto them, Are ye so without understanding also? Do ye not perceive that whatsoever thing from without entereth into the man, it cannot defile him?
Because it entereth not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out into the draught, purging all meats.
Guard your heart.
Yes.
Guard your heart, the inner man, the heart, that man. Guard that, right? Because he says it does not go into the heart. It goes into the belly. So what goes into the belly, let it pass through.
Yeah. That's right.
Pass through and be gone.
Yeah.
But do not let it get into the heart. And he saith, that which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man.
For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders,
Thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness.
all these evil things come from within and defile the man.
Exactly. That's where it come from. Now we know the source
Yep.
of, I will say, all evil. That concerns us. I mean, what evil that someone else concerns them, let them deal with it. You know, be I far from it, or not even, but understand what would destroy me. And verse 24, and from thence he arose and went into the borders of Tyre and Sidon, and entered into an house, and would have no man know it, but he could not be hid.
For a certain woman, whose young daughter had an unclean spirit, heard of him, and came and fell at his feet.
The woman was a Greek, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she besought him that he would cast forth the devil out of her daughter.
But Jesus said unto her, let the children first be filled, for it is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it unto the dogs.
And she answered and said unto him, Yes, Lord, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs.
And he said unto her, for this saying, go thy way, the devil is gone out of thy daughter.
Fascinating how the wise woman learns to negotiate or to agree with him to his, and then advance further in his logical, or not his logical conclusion, but to counter with something that is admirable on his
And
part.
being
And he,
of the
knowing
world.
all things beforehand, knew how this conversation was going to go.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
she was a Greek of
yes.
the world.
Unclean or whatever.
She was
as
of
we
the
read.
world. I
Yeah.
remember reading this quote that
True.
said, if you go to the poor, for they're the only ones that'll help you. You know, if you need help, go to the poor, for they're
Right.
the only ones that will help you, you know.
Mhm.
And it made me think about how in society, just in general, of the world, you know, people of the world will help you.
Yeah.
You know.
Many times they will have the
Yeah.
what,
It's just
what we need.
I don't even know if I'd call it help though,
Love
but it's like
or
yeah,
compassion.
it's so easy for them. It's because we
Yeah.
put all these burdens and
And then you get
it's
into
unnecessary.
religion or
Yes,
an
religion.
organized church, and
Yeah.
many times we find that there's not a hand extended, right?
Right. Yeah. And for
or
her,
even a hand that will receive.
yeah.
Right, here, we find actually she who's not, hungry, and would take a crumb. Just give me a crumb.
Right. Right. She understood.
And then you
it's
could
like,
go to the congregation or not but to people who are rich, and they won't even take the loaf.
well, as
And
one of the chapters we were reading when he said it, he's not even respected in his own home, kind of thing, in his
Right.
own hometown,
Right.
But he said unto her,
To go outside into the nations.
mm-hmm.
Right. That's where, there's the mission field right there. But it's all about us.
In verse 29 it said, and he said unto her, for this saying, go thy way, the devil is gone out of thy daughter. Yeah.
And when she was come to her house, she found the devil gone out and her daughter laid upon the bed.
And that's the end that we hear about her, but it's a very
Yeah.
fascinating discourse between them, you know?
And she's what? The Greek, right?
Yeah.
The Greek.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to read the Greek.
Yeah. And verse 31, and again, departing from the coasts of Tyre and Sidon, he came unto the Sea of Galilee, through the midst of the coasts of Decapolis.
And they bring unto him one that was deaf, and had an impediment in his speech, and they beseech him to put his hand upon him.
And he took him aside from the multitude, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue.
Yeah. Now, if I went to a doctor and he did that, I don't know, it probably won't go well after that. I don't, And looking up to heaven, he sighed and saith unto him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened.
Huh.
When I look up that word in the Greek, it says Ephphatha, be opened. I wonder if that's the same word. I'm going to look this up real quick where, opened a tomb. I don't know. No, that's the only time it appears in the Bible, that word Ephphatha.
All right, verse 35, and straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spake plain.
Huh.
String of his tongue.
Yeah.
Huh.
I have to say, was it a literal string?
Or was it like, that little flap under your tongue? People have had to,
Ukulele or no, that's
No,
the thing in the back.
it's under your tongue, and sometimes doctors do have to clip that so that,
You can speak plainly?
yeah.
Oh.
But when a baby, and like a newborn, they can't nurse, and there's a term for that.
Oh.
But the tongue,
Clip that tongue.
yeah, there's that little piece under the tongue, and they can't latch on. But
Well, maybe, we're just like puppets.
yeah,
And there's strings, right? We need something to be clipped so that we may speak freely, right? And he charged them that they should tell no man. But the more he charged them, so much the more a great deal they published it. So,
yeah,
it's pretty interesting if we're all our tongues are on strings, right? And the Lord has control over all of them. How many a times we disobey?
yeah. And he said,
But
don't do
I've
it.
said this as how can we disobey him who commands all things that are done? It's a great, not dilemma, but it can be, try not to let it go too far.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
And verse 37, and the last verse in chapter 7 here, and were beyond measure astonished, saying, He hath done all things well. He maketh both the deaf to hear and the dumb to speak.
Mm-hmm. He does.
Yeah. He doeth all things well.
Yeah, sounds like a song.
Yeah.
A hymn. Okay, that's the end of Mark, the book of Mark, chapter 7. And today, again, is April 11th, 2024. So that concludes today's reading, thus far at least. We may read some more later today, but at least this segment of what we are recording for this segment.
Yeah.
Thank you.